Okay, hello guys. We are back with another video, the second to last Superman and Lois video. Well, we will be doing the series. Penultimate has just aired, and man, this show never disappoints. But yeah, this is the series Penultimate, and I'll talk about what I thought it was gonna be, what it ended up being at the end of the video, kind of. I mean, I guess my hopes for next episode, the series finale, and breaking down this episode and the deeper meanings. I guess, are just breaking it down. We'll get through it. Okay, so the episode starts with us learning that Lex now has access to John Henry's suit and scans, and we know John Henry got some scans of Clark last episode and realized that he's not that healthy anymore. Luthor has leaked these scans to the press now. Once Clark tells this to the boys, John says that maybe they should take him out. And Clark's like, that's not how we do things. And John says, maybe it should be. And Clark's like, no way, get out of here, kind of a thing. But kind of not, I don't know. Then Lois comes in and says no one wants to be associated with the Gazette or her anymore. That now it is bad PR with her situation with Luthor. Before the intro hits, Clark says that now it is time to get into Luthor's head. And they do exactly that this episode. Luthor and Amanda's head. They try and get under their skin and into their heads this episode. Once we get back from the intro, we see the boys at the diner, Vicky Mays, with a bunch of people outside now that they know who they are, and they just want to eat. They just want to eat. But there's Superman merch everywhere, all around Vicky Mays now. Even the menus have Superman logos on it. And by the way, I was thinking this moment, the mob outside of Vicky Mays would, if it were real life, they would break in. Like, they would just go in the door. That's what would happen. And they would be so uncivilized, because that's what humans are. But on this menu, we see that John has a full meal, and Jordan has loaded curly fries on the kids menu. And Jordan says they should ask permission first if he's going to be on the kids menu. It's pretty funny. But they start to talk about the fact that everyone in the mob out there is smiling at them and trying to hang out with them, but they don't know how dangerous Luthor is. And then they start to talk about maybe they should start stepping up now that their father's kind of stepping down, sort of. And this is definitely what I've been using this entire season, the words stepping up, and they actually said it in the episode, which is great. Then they get some free food, which is their meals. And Jordan's just looking at his curly fries in disappointment, but they look amazing. They look good, and then he gives a fake smile here, which is great. Then we get Amanda interrupting Lois at the Gazette, kind of bombarding her, I guess, but she says, here's a bill for our windows that you broke, which I was kind of wondering about last episode, but again, petty. They're a bunch of petty people. But Amanda says Otis was murdered, which is like, basically Lois and Amanda here have a back and forth about who will win this and being petty, basically. But Amanda says out loud that Otis was murdered instead of that he killed himself. But obviously Lois won't ever be able to prove that Amanda said this, but I just thought it was surprising. Then Amanda explains how she should be higher on his board on Lois's board of people and connections, that Amanda should be higher next to Lex. And then they get a conversation about the fact that truth matters. Lois thinks that truth matters, and Amanda says that she'll never find Cheryl. Now, this isn't a confirmation she's dead, but she's like, you'll never find Cheryl. But I was like, okay, they're not saying she's dead. Is she dead, or is she just hidden very well, or is she like in space or something? Like, I don't know. Then we get Lex at his office when Clark Kent, Superman, breaks in, or kind of flies in, I mean. And then Lex sits on his desk. Like, he likes to sit like this multiple times. We've seen him sit on his desk like this. He should just get like a chair there. But anyways, Clark kind of tries to get under his skin here, but Lex basically tells him, you're not so good now with your old heart. But Clark says, my heart worked fine enough when I beat your ass in Smallville. Excuse my language. But Clark says that he's playing dress up, that this isn't him. And there's back and forth. It was amazing. Clark kind of just roasting him. It was great. And then Lex is like, I will rip out your heart like I did last time. But like, Lex, you didn't rip out his heart, man. A big scary doomsday did. Clark tells him his freedom is running out, and it gets under his skin. He takes off his tie, his jacket, and he's making Lex feel like a fake version of himself who isn't the one calling the shots. We go back to the Gazette where Lois is ripping apart the papers on her board. Clark comes into the Gazette. Lois tells Clark that lawyers are gonna sue, and Lois thinks that Cheryl is dead and lost. Clark says they haven't lost yet. They're not going to lose yet. They are unstoppable compared to Amanda and Lex, that they're a couple, which is true. They got a better relationship, I'd say. Clark starts to quote her masterclass that we've heard time and time again, and it's about retracing your steps and going back to the beginning. She calls him a dork, and yeah, I guess Clark Kent is. But Lois describes that she's going to be going to the beginning in this Lex situation. Then we see the boys outside of the diner with a bunch of group of people. And Jordan's telling people that said they like the curly fries. So they're glad you like the curly fries. Superman comes up. Clark Kent says, can I just get my boys for a minute? And for some reason, the mob just lets them have their own private conversation. Again, not real life. Real humans are very uncivilized and would just not listen. But they said that they're going to give them what the people want. And they go and fly to the fortress to go do some fighting or practicing. Then we're going to see with Amanda walking in on Lex and calls him Babe, which is very interesting. But Lex makes Amanda the largest shareholder of Luthor Corp after him. And this is definitely showing that Clark got to him. That he knows that Amanda's calling a lot of the shots, and he's trying to confirm this, and he's definitely got some doubts in this newfound partnership because he wants to be the one calling the shots. And then he says he has to go because Milton has something new to show him. We go back to the fortress with Clark and the boys practicing against the war suit, John Henry's war suit, and they're failing over and over again. Clark watches and decides they're not ready yet. Clark wanted to see where they're at, and he's not happy. Then we go to Lois, who goes to Stryker's prison, and I was like, okay, she's going back to the beginning. Stryker's prison, that's not quite the beginning, but that's the beginning of, like, Lex as we saw him. What is she going to do? And then Bruno Mannheim appears. Bruno Mannheim. I was so hyped here. Like, this already made the episode for me. I was like, oh, this episode can be bad. It can be bad the rest of the episode. Bruno Mannheim's here. Let's go. I like him. But he tells Lois she looks healthy. She says everyone at the hospital treated her well. And he says, I'm truly glad to hear that. And it was just like this nice conversation. And he was being nice. I was like, aw, y'all are nice. And then as soon as I thought that, it starts to go downhill. Because Lois explains Lex is going after her family. He's like, you are the one who let him out. I was actually wondering if they'd go back to this Pia episode where Pia was in a holding cell and Pia told Lois never to let him out, and she still did. I wonder if they'd go back to the fact that Pia warned her not to, and she still did it, and that's the reason she's going through this. Mannheim sees himself as the hero of the story that actually worked to put him away so he wouldn't go against all these other lives, but he did it with a lie. He explains that Lois only gives a damn now that it affects her and her family. But then Lois starts to bring in the fact that Lex will, I guess, hurt Hobbs Bay, maybe even Mateo, his son. And yeah, but Lois tells him she needs his help to put him away for good using the truth instead of putting him away using a lie. So using the truth and describing what we will get as more Cheryl Kimbo, I'm wondering if there's going to be some breakthrough with Cheryl being what puts Lex away for good in prison. I think it'll be something like that. They've been alluding to that, and they didn't confirm she's dead. So maybe she comes out as the main witness. Maybe she gets justice for kind of being responsible for Gramps' death. We'll see. Then we go back to Lex, who is with Brainiac, Lex says the suit looks the same, but Brainiac explains how it's kryptonite infused and that Clark will get weaker the closer he gets to it. I was guessing that this would happen last episode, But he explained there's kryptonite lace screws as well, to blow up his heart, I guess, if they get close to each other. But then he also explains that there was a Captain Luther file in this suit for John Henry, which was from the other Earth, which is very interesting. And then they find that DOD file on Doomsday. And here I was wondering, wait. Does the DOD have Doomsday? And then we cut away from that. We get back to Bruno and Lois when Lois says, is there anyone with an axe to grind against Lex that isn't dead? She explains Cheryl. That kind of name pops out of her mouth. And Mannheim says, Cheryl. I knew Cheryl and Lex when they were together. Mannheim says Cheryl is funny as hell, which, no way. Just want to say that right now. But he explains how Cheryl was in love with Luther, and she tricked herself into thinking that Luther was in love with her. But she says Lois interprets this as the pattern repeating itself with Amanda now. She thanks Bruno for her help. And here I felt really sad. He did a great job acting. I felt so bad for him, and I was thinking, Lois, visit him more. Look at this man. Visit him more. And that's all we get of Bruno, but I was glad he was back. But at the same time, I was wondering, what are these officers thinking hearing all this? And then I was also thinking, what if one of these guys is like a plant by Lex? Lex planted one of these men, getting free information to watch on Bruno Mannheim's actions. Like, I don't know. Clark has a conversation with his mother in the fortress, who says that his sons will never get as powerful as Clark because they're half human. But I was thinking the same thing here, is that two halves equal a whole. There's two of them and only one Clark. So yeah, but Clark has obvious frustration, and Laura explains how she feels the same when she couldn't save Krypton and her only move was to send him away. And they've kind of got the same thing here with the impending doom of Doomsday later, which they didn't expect. We'll talk about that more, but Lex and his weaknesses, and he doesn't know what to do. Takes her advice here. Then we go back to Lex, who is starting to figure out how Doomsday got away from him. He sees DOD recordings and files and sees that Lois convinced him that he knew her from this other world, and that's why he stopped attacking. But Lex says, I know where it is. And Brainiac is actually funny here. He says, okay, glad you do. Never go there. He said that so casually, and I think that was a great line. But Lex says he's going to Smallville to visit an old friend. And then we cut away, and I was like, who's he talking about? Is he talking about Doomsday? Is that who he's talking about? We were just talking about? Is it someone we don't know? Is it the Kents? But it does end up being Doomsday. But in between this, we get Lois with Amanda again, and Lois coming to Amanda with information about Cheryl Kimball, that Cheryl and Lex were an item, and it was the same, I guess, relationship that Amanda and him have now, but Lex is incapable of love and is only using her. But we end the scene with Lois getting under Amanda's skin, and she explains that Lex is making his own plan. Then Amanda has a scene with Brainiac about where Lex went and stuff, and Brainiac, I just thought in this scene, Brainiac is such a dick. He was just a jerk to her. Then we go back to Lois putting stuff back on this board that she tore apart, and at the same time Clark telling the boys that they are limited, but he needs to figure out what they can do. They're playing a fighting game, as always a fighting game. But John says, I don't want to play video games anymore. Jordan's like, is that because you lost 3 times in a row? And then Clark comes in and says his favorite thing on the menu is the French dip, but then he says, and the fries. And then Clark says he wants to take advantage of them not being alone, that he was alone, had to teach himself, but they are 2 people, like I was saying. And then they ask him if he needs a hug. Yeah. And then there was one line where it was very weird, and I thought it wasn't in the script. I think it may have been, or if it was acted weird. It was my interpretation, but I felt like it was just a winging it. What is it called? I don't know. There's a word for it, but when it's not on the script and you say a line. But Jordan said fraternals very like quietly to his brother, and when he talked about them working together, and it seemed like maybe it was not on the script. Just a piece of note from me. Then we get Lex in Smallville, looking fine, by the way, in his suit, going back to his place. Lois encounters him and says, sorry, I completely forgot what she said, but I know Lex says, this will all be over soon, goodbye, and that was a little weird. Then we go to Amanda letting herself into his apartment or living area. And basically they get in a fight. And I was like, yes, these two are letting people get under their skin. Lex is jealous that the town chose Clark and Lois when he offered them millions. He got a fragile ego. And then Amanda's questioning if he's going with her plan anymore. Lex is very angry man who wants his plan. He wants his plan. He wants him to be in control. He doesn't want to be a puppet like he feels. And then I was thinking last episode, Amanda and Lex like dismantled the trust of the public and kind of dismantled Clark and Lois's I guess not relationship, but how the world perceived them. And it was very satisfying this episode to see Clark and Lois dismantling them and their relationship. But then Amanda starts to ask about Cheryl. Lex is like, Lois is poisoning the well, which is the exact same words he used when he talked about his ex-wife poisoning the well for his daughter. But he gets a call from Brainiac, calls the suit here. It comes through the roof. He gets the suit and he flies away. And I thought here that this is perfect. Clark and Lois's information here works so well. Clark got under his skin in the beginning of the episode, targeting his ego, which works on this Lex. And Lois happened to get the perfect information about Cheryl to get under Amanda to combat each other in that moment. Then we see that Doomsday's in the mines mining deeper, trying to get back to his world that he came from, the Bizarro world. And we see Lex finding Doomsday, tries to relate to him, says that he's a fighter and that they want the same thing. But Lex wants him to die for him one more time, he says, and he sends a bunch of rockets at him. At the same time, we see Clark checking his watch. Well, his boys try and hit him casually, but yeah, they're not on his level yet. But Clark hears Doomsday. The boys do as well. And Amanda comes into Lois's Gazette, the Smallville Gazette, telling Lois that she was right about Lex. And Lois says Doomsday just wants to go home, but Lex is doing something to him. Clark goes into the mines where Lex and Doomsday are. The rockets explode right as Clark flies at him. And here I was like, why is Clark flying at him when he just has missiles inside of him? Like, back away, please. Then we get the final craziness where Doomsday gets out of the mines and he's got his new look, his comic accurate look, and with the crystals, and it just looks so freaking good. And the lighting in this final sequence was so amazing and epic. It was great. And then Lois tries to talk to him again and say, hey, you remember me, but Doomsday doesn't recognize her anymore. He tries to flame her. The boys save her. Yeah, and here in this moment, like, we're in a low-budget show with a 10-episode season, like, and a network show. Like, these effects are insane. But then Clark comes flying in, punch Doomsday in a slow-mo into the side of a building. I mean, how many times has Smallville been just destroyed? Like, they should start paying for some of this stuff if they haven't. I guess they're paying it by saving people, huh? But then we see, I forgot her name, Miss May or something. The name of the diner, Vicky May's the older woman hiding behind the counter with a panic attack, just like Jordan normally does. He calms her down, and again, showing Jordan and Jonathan's kind of rise to stepping up to being heroes in this world. And Jordan is interesting. He's got that emotional and isolating connection that he can use to actually help people now as he becomes more super. Then we get a car flying through the air with the Doomsday and Clark fight, and the directing here was amazing, just showing the car in the window as Denise is looking, and then John catches it, another superhero moment. Then Lex is floating in the air as Clark and Doomsday fight, and he says, I just want to watch him die this time. And he's so petty. I say that like every episode. Lex is so petty, it's insane. But then we get Clark crashing down onto the street with his entire family in front of him, Lois and the boys. They look scared. Lois looks like she's about to cry again. I was like, please no, she's been through too much. And then he says, I love you all. And oh my gosh, man, I was like so hyped at the fight and everything. And then he said, I love all of you, or he said, I love all of you. And in this moment, I was like, no. Like, I got chills. I was like, no, are they going to kill him at the end of the series? No, don't do that. Don't do that. That's what I was thinking in that moment. But then he starts to talk. I'm not exactly sure what he said, but I'm pretty sure he said, I always have, or I always will, before Doomsday comes in and snatches him up. And that's how the episode ends. And I was like, what the frick was that end sequence? What the actual hell? That was a movie, is what I said. That was a movie type episode, right? Or type ending there. And the series finale is definitely going to feel like a movie. And I guess we'll go through my end thoughts right here. I remember last week and going to this episode, especially because the last episode, episode 8, kind of felt like a build-up episode. I thought 9 and 10 were going to be like insane episodes, like the end of this episode kind of a thing. I thought the end of this episode was going to be the entire episode, basically, of episode 9 that would go into like the first 10 minutes or so of the series finale, and there'd just be 30 minutes left of the series finale that would just be resolution and happiness and ending. But I'm a little disappointed. That's more so what I wanted, but it makes sense. This is a good and simple penultimate episode, but I hoped for something else. But I hope they don't rush the series finale. CW finales do. And I hope we get enough time to get like a sick action movie, as well as enough time to get happy and amazing resolution. And I hope the show can do it that. And I love the show, and I trust the show to do that. And it looks insane by the teaser, the next episode, the final episode. And we're breaking that down right away tomorrow. Or not right away then if it's tomorrow, but tomorrow we're breaking that down, uploading that. And I just hope you all have a good rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye.